Out that we're going to lose our quorum at 2:45. So we have to go and go through any action items we have in this agenda before we lose a quorum. And I have the right as the chair, as the president, to reorder our agenda. So right now I have to reorder the agenda to go through action items, and then we can go back to the. So I need to go to the report of Intervention and Discipline Committee, which is chaired by Imelda, and we need to go into item 9.3.1 on the agenda so that she can do an action item.
Don't need the full update, just.
Yeah. So, do we have the staff person for this document? Yes. Excellent. Sorry about this. And then the other action items are going to be, in 10 point, in the nursing practice under 10.1. So if the nursing practice person is ready after that, and then we'll go back into other things.
Okay,
thank
so
you.
9.3 is,
One, just point one.
yes.
Yeah, that's your action item.
It is the appointment of Saqib Rashid, MD, physician member in IEC 5 Fresno, and I would call for your vote to appoint.
I make a motion to accept.
I'll second that.
Is there any public comments? Board, do you have any comments? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote, starting from my right.
Cindy Klein votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seha Butkus, yes.
Trandy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Okay, so now, Ms.
Thank you,
Woods,
Shannon.
we'll be going into report of the Nursing Practice Committee for your action items.
Action item is 10.1. 10.1, action item. And Jeanette will go over this for us.
Thank you.
Discussion regarding possible action to approve an informational bulletin.
It's based on a bill that was signed 1109 of 218, controlled substances, Schedule II drugs, opioids. The law requires that nurse midwives include certification of advanced practice pharmacology course to add to the opioid requirement, risk of addiction and neonatal abstinence syndrome associated with the use of Schedule II. And the reason that we're hearing this today for you to approve it is that much like the nurse practitioners, the nurse midwives now are approved for Schedule II, and it's an action item for our advanced practice licensing person. I have collaborated with the schools and with the organization of nurse midwives in order to add this. An individual who needs Schedule II, the DEA reads on their furnishing number whether they've had addiction added in the neonatal abstinence. So this is an action item because it requires the advanced practice licensing unit to certify such on the furnishing number in their Breeze account. So I would like you to approve this document. It's very similar to the nurse practitioner document.
I make a motion that we approve the document.
I
will
second
it.
that.
Any discussion? Board, any questions, discussion? From the audience, any discussion? Shall we take the vote, please, starting on my right?
Cindy Klein votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seha Butkus, yes.
Trandy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Thank you.
It has passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Okay, now we'll go back into the legislative report on the Senate bills. And we would like to move very quickly through these so we have a quorum to take a position on the rest of the bills.
Moving into the Senate bills, we have Senate Bill 53, which is Senator Wilkes' bill related to open meetings. And what this
would do is basically say that in order to comply with the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, that the advisory committees that have 2 or more persons participating, again, would be considered to be a meeting requiring public notice and public attendance, if
Make
so
a
desired.
recommendation, we oppose.
I second that. Haven't we seen this bill before?
Yes, it was last session.
It keeps,
Yeah.
this is like the paramedic bill that just keeps resurfacing.
Any public comment?
Okay. Then we're ready to vote? Ready to vote.
Cindy Klein, yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seha Bedgood, yes.
Randy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Okay, moving on.
Senate Bill 223 is Senator Hill's bill related to pupil health administration of medical cannabis in school sites. And that bill was most recently amended on March 11th, and you had a copy of that amended version. So that this bill is going to allow parents or a child's guardian to come onto the school site to administer medical cannabis in non-vaping, non-smoking form.
I recommend that we take a watch position. Second that. Okay, is there any board discussion? Any public comment? Okay, then we'll vote.
Cindy Klein votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seha Bedgood, yes.
Randy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Okay.
Senate Bill 227 is Senator Leiva's bill related to health and care facilities, inspections, and penalties. So this basically empowers the California Department of Public Health to enforce current nurse staffing ratios by fining hospitals, similar to what's done with skilled nursing facilities, which repeatedly create unsafe conditions for patient care by violating the Title 22 nurse staffing ratio requirements.
I move to approve or support.
Second.
Any board comment? Public comment?
Hi, my name's Joyce Powell, and I'm a one-to-one RN, and we are also sponsors of this bill. Currently, CDPH, for those that don't know, considers that nurse-patient ratios as minor, and they do not have any monetary value. They are plans of correction. The only time that they come out to fine, and in the investigation, there were 465 deficiencies between 2004 and 2010, and only 2 penalties, and those were for immediate jeopardy to patients. So up and down the state, this is being violated, the ratios. There's no enforcement or teeth, and I strongly support in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing no more public comment, I move to a vote.
Cindy Klein votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seha Bedgood, yes.
Randy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Okay.
Senate Bill 322 is Senator Bradford's bill related to health facilities, inspections, employee reporting. So this bill basically protects nurses and other healthcare workers' ability to speak privately with the state hospital inspector from the California Department of Public Health during an investigation.
I move that we support this bill.
I second it.
Any other board comment?
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this, but without knowing more specifics, seems like anybody would be able to talk to the inspector, and anybody can accuse or say anything about anybody else or other nurses.
She has a comment?
Is there any public comment?
There's something.
You'll clarify it for me.
If I may. Saskia Kim again with CNA. We're the sponsor of this bill. So under existing law, when an inspector from Cal OSHA comes into a facility, employees are allowed to speak privately with that inspector. When an inspector from CDPH, the Department of Public Health, comes into that same facility, there is no similar right to speak privately with that inspector. So the concern and what's happened, and we've heard from our nurses, that management is kind of hovering while you're having these discussions about health and safety violations or patient safety concerns. And that chills the speech and the ability of the employee to share with the inspector fully what's been going on. And the inspector doesn't have a full picture, and so we also think it has an adverse impact on patient safety. So we'd appreciate your support.
Support this bill also, Joyce Powell. All right.
Thank you. Any other board comment? Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Cindy?
Cindy Klein votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seha Bedgood, yes.
Randy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Senate Bill 425 is Senator Hill's bill related to healthcare practitioners, licensees file, probationary physicians insertion certificate, and unprofessional conduct. So this bill would add a section to the business and profession codes that provides that a health facility or clinic or other entity that makes arrangements under which a healing arts licensee is allowed to practice in or provide care for patients shall file a report of any allegations of sexual abuse or sexual misconduct made against a healing arts licensee to the relevant state agency within 15 days of receiving the allegation of sexual abuse or sexual misconduct. It also states that an employee or a healing arts licensee that works in any health facility or clinic, healthcare service plan, or other entity to which subdivision B applies, who has knowledge of any allegation of sexual abuse or sexual misconduct by a healing arts licensee shall file a report with the agency that has regulatory jurisdiction over the healing arts licensee and the administration of the health facility or clinic, healthcare service plan, or other entity within 15 days of knowing about the allegation of sexual abuse or sexual misconduct.
Can I ask a question about this? My question is are there any safeguards or any things around things such as abusive relationships and ugly divorces where people make claims about these things to punish the other person? Because you see that a lot. I've seen it over the years a lot. This is one of the things that's such an emotional issue, that if somebody's in the middle of an ugly divorce or a custody battle or a domestic violence abuser of a person will come in and make these kind of charges just because they know it's going to destroy the reputation of the other person.
I haven't heard that, and that's certainly a good point. I used to call those kind of complaints to the BRN the grudge complaints.
Right. Is there any
basically.
protection on grudge complaints?
I don't believe in this bill.
Okay.
I make a recommendation we watch.
I'll second that. Any board comments?
Well, I do have a question about it. So some things need to be reported to the authorities, like the police right away, and not just could be reported later on to agency, but some things have to be reported right away. This doesn't speak to that.
I think because this is addressing the issue of underreporting of such instances, and so it takes so long to find somebody who is, say, caught in a current situation, but then when they look back, they find out that there has been a history and it was never reported, so nothing could ever be done about the situation.
No, I understand it, but it's who to report it to that I'm concerned about.
I think
A
this is
state
so
agency
the
versus something needs to be reported to the police.
The police would be a criminal aspect of it. This is for disciplinary action against the licensee.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any public comment? Okay, taking no more comment, then I'd like to vote, and this is a recommendation for a watch position.
Cindy Klein votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seha Bedgood, yes.
Randy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Thank you. We're moving on to Senate Bill 567, which is Senator Caballero's bill related to workers' compensation, hospital employees. And what this bill would do is defines injury for a hospital employee who provides direct patient care in an acute care hospital to include infectious diseases, cancer, musculoskeletal injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, and respiratory diseases. It creates rebuttable presumptions that these injuries that develop or manifest in a hospital employee who provides direct patient care in an acute care hospital arose out of and in the course of employment. And it would extend the presumptions for specified time periods after the hospital employee's termination of employment.
I would like to make a motion to support.
She started before you did, so this is Imelda's motion.
Yes.
Imelda?
I would
Go
like to
for it.
make a motion to support.
I second it.
Okay, a board comment?
Yes, I have a question again. Why is this just hospital workers? Why isn't it any healthcare facility? You know,
Well,
we don't know that.
so currently, I think, firefighters, they get protection, they get, when they injure themselves at work. Often, and again, I don't know why it's just hospitals right now, but oftentimes the nurses get hurt at the hospitals and there's no compensation, there's nothing.
I understand that, but nurses get hurt a lot of places other than the hospital because they all don't work in the
That's true.
hospital.
That's true.
So that would be
You want to
my-
send your comments to the author?
Yeah. Okay. Would you like to come up and speak to the bill?
I think this is a start.
Saskia Kim with CNA, we're the sponsors of this bill. And I think that's just it, that this is the place where we're starting, that these are rebuttable presumptions for the purposes of workers' compensation already exist for a lot of the male-dominated professions, and so we're seeing this as a gender equity, a gender parity bill, to be frank. So I think, we're starting with the hospital employees as a place to start, so. That fully answers the question, but
Are you limiting it to acute care hospital, or is this all hospital?
do you have I think it's general
about-
acute care is defined as 1250, is that the, I'm sorry, I didn't bring the bill with me.
What about psych hospitals? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
The addition to the labor code is specifically for hospital employees who provides direct patient care. And then for purposes of this section, acute care hospital means a health facility is defined in subdivision A or B of section 1250 of the Health and Safety Code.
What's the answer? It's just acute, not psych.
I think that's right, I have to double check and I can get back to you.
Psych is a place where there's a lot of injuries.
Right. That's a good point.
Again, my
Are you
motion,
through,
my
with-
motion stands. I mean, I think it's a good start.
So we're watching it. Is that what you're?
No, we're taking a support,
I'm
she
taking
has a
this-
motion to support. And I would like to speak to this too, of saying, when I look at this list of the things that are encountered, I can give names and faces to all of these things of people that not dozens of people I've known, maybe more than that, who have been affected by all these things and then have had an impossible time trying to convince hospitals to cover these illnesses and these injuries. So I think it's an excellent start. I agree it would be nice to expand it, but I think we need to start. Yeah. So anyway, I'm in support of this motion. Any other comment from the board? Any other comment
Well,
from the
I'd like
public?
it to at least add psych hospital on, because there's a lot of injuries there, and not only injuries, there's deaths there. People have been killed in some of the psych hospitals, so.
Would you like me to amend my
No, we just send her
With
comments
amendment?
to the
No,
author.
what we can do is, what
Send
we
your
can do in a
comments to the
case like
author.
this is we can take what's there and support, but we can tell the author and our staff that they would like to recommend to this author that they consider expanding it or changing the language. But that wouldn't mean that we can't take a support position on what exists. And the rationale and the discussion that you're having can also be taken into consideration.
Do you want to amend your motion to add site, to recommend that they contact the author to do site hospitals?
We can. Do you, Imelda?
I didn't hear that.
I didn't,
I'm
Imelda
sorry,
made the
yes.
motion.
Do you want to add to your motion direction to staff to contact the author to add psych hospitals?
Psych hospitals are considered acute care
They're
hospitals.
hospitals. Well, in case they're not, do you want to add?
Yes, they are.
I thought they are.
The author not make the assumption.
No, there's no assumption in it. Psychiatric
They have to be
hospitals are considered
licensed.
acute care hospitals.
Aren't they? I thought they were.
Everybody's saying yes,
Yeah,
we
okay,
need to
Dr.
check
Morris,
on
do
it.
you want to weigh in on this? So we do this correctly?
Respectfully, I think the board, I mean, if your position is to support the bill, support it, then I would instruct staff to contact the author to strongly consider the recommendations.
I will amend my motion to include that.
Seconded.
Okay, then that's been moved and seconded. So now we're doing a motion for the bill to support and to include psych hospitals. Would we also, I do have a question on this before we vote. Do we want to have a letter in support of this from the board?
That's what Thelma's for.
Yeah, and that's what Thelma's going to do, that you'll give the communication in a letter. Did you have?
I didn't have the answer at hand. So the definition in the bill refers to subdivisions A and B of Section 1250 in the Health and Safety Code, and B is acute psych hospital.
Okay, it's set.
So it's
Psych
included.
hospital.
Sorry.
That was the quickest letter
Okay,
to the
so
author.
clarification that I'm hearing is that would automatically include psych hospitals then?
I'm going to vote to call for the question.
Okay. Are you going to
Calling for the question.
So just straight up support?
just straight up support by the author?
Straight up support.
And second agrees, so now the author and the second are that we agree that it'll be straight up support. Okay.
Cindy Klein votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seja Beckwith, yes.
Trandy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Okay.
The last bill on our agenda is Senate Bill 700, which is a placeholder bill at this point related, so that the topic is business and professions noncompliance with support orders and tax delinquencies, but it's on the
I make
agenda.
a motion, we oppose.
Let me give some clarification to SB 700. SB 700 is actually a bill that we have talked to the author about, Senator Roth, as far as an option to deal with the displacement issues, looking at the results and these recommendations from
Wait a
the.
minute, 700? I thought it's taxes and student loans.
No, it came out as a placeholder, but now there is language that we're still working with Ledge Council on clarifying exactly what that language is going to say. It will focus on setting up consortiums, which was a recommendation that came out of the regional summits. And that language is still being massaged as far as exactly how it will, the details that will be there. So, I mean, I would suggest that at this point that you may want to watch it
withdraw my
until,
motion.
thank you.
We had some secret language.
I'll
Thank
second.
you, Mr. Jackson.
Okay, so
Watch
we have a
motion.
first and second to watch this bill,
Thank you.
especially if it's about consortium language.
Yes, it is.
Who's the first and second?
I
Mine
did
was
the
a
first,
second.
there's a second.
Okay. Because that's been something we have been discussing. Okay, any other comments from the board? Any other public comment? Then I think we should, yes.
Want to vote on taking the watch position?
We are doing that.
Well, that's what I'm in the process of doing.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I'm ready to go to a vote on taking a watch position on SB 700.
Cindy Klein votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Imelda Seja Beckwith, yes.
Trandy Phillips, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Is that the end of the
Thank you, and
legislative
it
report?
concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We're going to move immediately into the 9.0 report of the Intervention Discipline Committee with Chairperson Imelda Seya Beckwith.
Oh, boy.
Okay, we've done all the action items. Okay.
Okay, staff, thank you. If you can please identify yourselves.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Pacheco. I am the Deputy Chief of Enforcement in charge of complaint intake and investigation programs for the board. I will start my report with a complaint intake update. Our complaint intake unit is currently piloting a new process for transmitting cases to the experts, and will soon be transmitting most, if not all of them, electronically via the cloud or through some other secure means to our experts. My plan is to have all expert reviews transmitted electronically by July of this year. And on the same vein of expert practice consultants, our recruitment efforts over the last year have proven to be quite successful. In addition, to updating our website, the RN renewal application now in Breeze asks every renewal applicant whether or not they have an interest in serving the board as an expert practice consultant. That data is compiled. All of those interested parties are contacted by board staff, and we focus our recruit on our most important, most critical needs for expert specialties. Currently, we have 189 RNs under contract. That's over 100 more than we had 2 years ago. And we have reduced our processing timeframes from a total timeframe, what used to be 56 days on average, down to 33 days. We've added staff recently to help with the preparation of those cases, and I'm very hopeful that timeframe's going to get even lower.
Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Staffing, in complaint intake, we have one open office technician. That person, our recruitment is complete. The person will start on Monday and will then be fully staffed again. Total complaint workload for fiscal year is, I'll just summarize for time, we are currently at a total of 6,278 complaints year to date. That volume is only by a few cases higher than last year. It's almost identical to last year. I've included some statistics about our open workload. They're similar to past reports, and I'll pause for questions if there are any on complaint intake.
Any questions from the board?
No.
From the public? None?
Moving on to investigation programs. In February, our internal investigation unit held its annual investigator training conference. The 2-day training event included presentations from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, the Department of Justice's Bureau for Medi-Cal Fraud and Elder Abuse, the San Diego County District Attorney's Office, and presentations from our BRN liaison deputy attorney generals. We had an RN expert on wound and ostomy care come and give training to our investigators to make them more aware of those types of issues and how to investigate them. And LexisNexis came out and gave more training to our investigators on how to use their product in their investigations. Our internal investigation unit is enjoying a period of very high productivity and low average processing times, and I want to congratulate the entire investigation unit staff and managers for their efforts to improve work processes and investigative timeframes. Currently, the BRN investigation unit average processing times for the year are the lowest on record at 199 days on average. The unit has only 4 cases over 1 year old, and that's the lowest in the team's 7-year history.
Congratulations.
In addition, in response to our committee meetings last month and the Division of Investigations presentation to the committee, Dr. Morris and Stacy Baruman and I are planning to meet with DOI management and discuss their ongoing backlogs in the DOI investigative workload. Per the committee's recommendation, we will also be discussing possible changes to the Division of Investigation DCA's CPEI guidelines and how they apply to the BRN so that we can better address the workload concerns. I'll report back to the committee of the results of these meetings. Any questions on that before I move on?
I do. I have a question. So when you arrange for those meetings, can you include either myself or one of our board members on the committee intervention?
Absolutely.
To attend the meeting? I want to definitely be there, and I want either one of you to be there because who knows best, but you guys. Dr. Morris, of course, but please include us. Thank you.
Sure. Staffing in our investigation unit, we have one vacant supervising special investigator position. Recruitment for this position is ongoing. Stats for investigations, they're similar to previous reports. We have 2/3 of the cases stay with BRN investigations and 1/3 goes to the Division of Investigation. For year to date, DFI's closed 307 cases. Their average days to complete the investigation are 330 days. Average hours per case are 39 hours with a cost recovery amount of $7,684 per investigation. BRN has closed 566 cases. Average days to complete the investigation was 199 days with 28.9 hours per case with a cost recovery amount of $2,567 per case. Like I said earlier, BRN has 4 cases over 1 year old, and the Division of Investigation currently has 93 open investigations over 1 year old.
And again, this is the reason why we're requesting that special meeting. It's unacceptable that some of their cases are so old. It put the public in jeopardy. Public safety is at risk, so we want to make sure that we process those right away. If they cannot, then I'm going to request that we take over or hire our own investigator.
Shortly on outreach activities, our complaint intake manager, Sonia Wilson, has volunteered and been tapped to be a presenter at DCA's Solid Enforcement Academy, a class on complaint intake. That we have our staff doing probation, investigations, report writing, and now we have them doing our complaint intake. So BRN is heavily involved in the department's effort to train department-wide staff on enforcement matters. And then finally, thanks to a renewed relationship that Shannon and I both have with BVNPT and their new enforcement chief, our 2 agencies have finally finalized a memorandum of understanding which allows the 2 agencies to share investigation materials between the 2 boards. It's something we haven't had in the past. This agreement will eliminate duplication of investigative efforts and streamline investigations for complaints with joint BRN and BVNPT licensure. The BRN shares approximately 14,800 mutual licensees with BVNPT, and that's more than BRN shares with any other board or bureau at DCA. We're pretty happy to report that. It's something we've been working on for some time. That concludes my report. If there are any questions.
Any questions from the board members? How about any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, let's move along. Thank you. Joe?
Shannon Johnson, Deputy Chief over Probation, Discipline, and Intervention. And before I begin with Agenda Item 9.2, as you know, we've recently hired 2 new managers within the enforcement unit, and they are here with me today, so I just wanted to introduce them. First is Tim Bunger. He is the new Staff Services Manager over the Discipline Unit.
Hello.
And then we have John Knowles, who is the new Staff Services Manager over our Probation Unit.
So John, I've seen your name in a lot of documents, so now I get to put the name with the face.
Yes,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Yeah, we're throwing them in the fire. So Agenda Item 9.2, Probation. I'll start with Probation. We did have 2 vacant Associate Government Program Analyst positions open, but we have recently just filled those 2 positions. One of them started this last Monday, and the other one will start the first of the new pay period next month. But it was a promotion for 1 staff member, so we are now going to be backfilling that Staff Services Analyst position. We currently have 91 cases per monitor, and that does include our active and our tolled cases. We have a total of 1,272 probationers right now. We just, as Joe spoke of just a moment ago, we just had another Enforcement Academy class for probation, and John, as well as one of our analysts, Lisa Hall, conducted that class on March 28th. Any questions on probation?
Any
Any questions from the board? Public? Okay. I'll move on to cite and fine. So we're fully staffed in cite and fine, and as of March 18th, we have issued 435 citations. We have collected just over $211,000, and we've ordered a little over $321,000. I'm going to move on to discipline. Tammy Logan, our discipline manager, she retired as of February 28th, and Tim took her position effective March 1st. As of March 18th, we had a total of 1,103 cases at the AG's office. We had 30 pending board vote, 86 were pending their final decision being processed. We had 145 cases pending hearings at Office of Administrative Hearings. 57 of those cases were over 2 years old at the AG. 200 of them were between 1 and 2 years old. Any
Again,
questions on that?
that's why we're requesting a special meeting, because this is unacceptable.
As of March 28th, we have referred over 917 cases to the Attorney General's office. We've had 65 petitions to revoke probation. We've served 657 pleadings. Our EO assigned 229 surrenders, and we've adopted 967 decisions. And that is it for agenda item 9.2. Any comments by the board? Public? Okay. 9.3 is our intervention program update. On March 22nd, we hosted the last mental health ad hoc committee meeting. They are finalizing that report now, and then it will go to the Intervention Discipline Committee for review on a May 2019 meeting, and we're hoping to have that for committee for the next committee meeting. We are currently involved in an RFP process, our vendor for intervention. The contract is up on December 31st, 2019, so we are currently working with the other 6 boards to put together an RFP so we can go out for bid again. Any questions on that at all? Any questions? Okay, we have some vacancies in our intervention evaluation committees. San Jose IEC 7, Los Angeles IEC 3, and I'm sorry, these are physician members vacancies, and Fresno IEC 5, Irvine IEC 4, and then we have 2 public member vacancies, San Jose IEC 7 and Fresno IEC 5. As of March 27th, we have had 2,369 successful completions in our intervention program. And we've already covered 9.3.1, so that will be it for my agendas.
Good. Thank you. Thank all the staff for a great job, and good job.
Thank you.
This is a lot better. I mean, when I first started, they were so behind, and we were getting all
We're
these.
getting there, little by
No,
little.
we are, definitely,
Before you go, thank you for all the hard work you do, which is why we wanted to add some more work onto you. For the probation department, when they come before the hearings, can we please tell the probationers, get their documents turned in time so they don't have to delay the hearings by handing us pages and pages of extra documents.
That was noted yesterday,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Yes. Okay.
And I know we tell the petitioners, they probably should.
Yeah, we do tell
I
them.
know.
They know. They know.
And they do it anyways.
Yes.
Maybe a second reminder before you come in here.
Maybe a 5th, I don't know.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Is that the end of your report?
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. So now we'll be moving on to 10.0, Report of Nursing Practice Committee with Ms. Woods, Chairperson.
Well, we do have a few people left still. So we actually did,
The first, 10.1.
well,
we did.
10.1, we already did. The other 2 items are informational items that Jeanette's going to give us. Let's do 10.2, report from the Advanced Practice RN Committee.
The Advanced Practice Committee met, and these are just a finalization of what they talked about. They met February 7th 2019. Probably the big discussion at the first of the meeting was they didn't know how to read the brief system to figure out where their license was. So we had help from the licensing group come and give a talk about where those informations are located. And I think we took care of that problem. The second was interesting. It was first assistant in the OR. And so there was an interest in talking about this, and you'll see at the bottom of the page, one of the things that came up is there's national certification for first assist. This all travels around operating room nurses and their standards for first assist. In California, we have had an informational item on first assist where the first assist does that according to standardized procedures. But the question that was brought to this group, advanced practice, was nurse practitioners who were or wanting to be first assists, and that they have to meet the same requirements as a staff nurse who becomes a first assist. And we had good telephone contact with people who called in and were first assists that could offer information about the first assist and how they work. Next is that they talked about was, give me a minute here. One of the things that several of the nurse practitioners who were there, one of them was there from Samuel Merritt, and she's an educator at Samuel Merritt. And there's been a change in the nurses that are becoming nurse practitioners. In the past, I would say maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, most RNs who became nurse practitioners had been in practice as RNs. And today we're finding people who can go through RN program, nurse practitioner program to DMP, and they've never practiced as an RN. So the big question on the table is whether or not there needs to be pursuit of residency programs for some of these people who have actually not been direct care RNs at any time in their educational processes going up the line. It's just discussion right now, and there's interest in trying to talk about how to get a residency program.
My understanding is that some of the nurse practitioner schools require some work as an RN, but not all of them do.
Not all, no. Most of them say 1 year. Okay, it's not a long time. It's not that 5 years where several years, I would say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, most of the NP programs, the nurses entering those NP programs were RNs for a number of years before they went in, and that doesn't seem to be the case now.
What programs are required for primary care physicians, general physicians?
Say it again.
When a general physician graduates from medical school, do they have to work at some?
No, you
prior
already
to?
know the answer.
Huh?
You already know the answer, no.
No.
So why are we doing it with nurses?
You know, as a public member, I think they need to have clinical. I mean, they just
No,
absolutely.
they do have clinicals.
But no, she was saying that.
Not as a practicing nurse at the bedside. It's clinical for the specialty
Clinical for
that they're
the
enrolled
specialty
in.
that you want to do, so that's your focus, right?
That's your focus when you're in a nurse practitioner
In your nurse
program like you
practitioner
heard
program,
today.
That's what you want to do. That's going to be your job. That's what you're going to pour your heart into, is just that. Just like a medical student does. There's no special program that they do prior to becoming physicians. They don't work as EMTs or anything like that.
Yeah,
Prior
Just
to
go straight
becoming
into the
doctors.
field.
I do have ambivalent feelings about this because we have PAs that function as PAs, that become PAs, and they don't really have any type of intensive medical background.
I'm only bringing to your attention
I know.
what happened at the meeting and the opinion of a couple of NPs or NP educators who brought this to light, that there's been a change in the population and how much experience they've had. That's all.
I appreciate the information. I think that we need to investigate or seek out what is it that we can do. Maybe it requires another bill, I don't know, but there has to be things in place.
Okay, just so you know, for APRN, with the new regulations, the minimum number of hours is 500 hours. The national testing for family nurse practitioners, 525 hours. You saw that came before you today, UC, USC, there's 787 hours. So there's a variation from one program to another as to how much clinical experience. And that's the people on this advanced practice committee were discussing this. And I guess there's no outcome to their discussion as yet. Okay.
Keep it posted, thank you.
The next topic really didn't get developed, and we don't have regulation for doctorate of nursing practice in the hours that are necessary for someone to go from MSN to DNP. And there's a number of DNP types. There can be leadership management DNP versus the nurse practitioner DNP. I'm sure they're going to go back to this agenda item and discuss it more, but it was just a placeholder for them to talk about it. Because it says Michael Erickson will present more information at a later date. So I'm sure we're going to see it on the agenda again.
Well, I think it's part of the work of the committee.
Yes,
To look at these
yes.
Issues in more detail and perhaps come up with something that we can deal with.
Standardized clinical hours for the doctorate of nursing practice.
Can we move on to the next item?
Yes, please.
Okay. 10.3, it's information only also. It's a report from the Nurse Midwifery Advisory Committee.
And they had talked about or requested to talk about, again, the board's decision to provide 2 years of being on the committee with the caveat that if they wanted to stay another 2 years, they would apply for that. They had asked for a total of 8 years, and the board decided not for the 8 years. So there was just a discussion about, well, why didn't you give us 8 years? So that was kind of terminated, that you had not made that decision. The next thing on the agenda is,
That's it. Other than the advisory.
I don't see Thelma. Thelma would be helpful for me. The next has to do with possible vote on recommendations for the change in the Practice Act for.
There's
No vote, no, it's just talk. But she's
not
going
on
to,
the agenda.
huh?
It's not on.
Not on the agenda.
3.0, proposals to amend the Nurse Practice Act and possible vote to recommend such amendments to the board. We did that. No, we didn't.
It wasn't on the, it's not on. It's not on the.
This was
our
just a
agenda.
discussion. It's their discussion about what they want to change the law.
Are you still talking about the Nurse Midwifery Advisory?
I am, 3.0.
Oh, okay. We
Okay.
thought you were
3.0.
going someplace else.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. You're going through your minutes of that meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where we got confused, yeah.
Oh, well, clear me up here. The Nurse Midwifery Committee, in particular, wants to do two things: procure certain supplies and medications. That would be changed in 2746.51, and they want to perform repairs and episiotomies in the home setting. That's 2746.52. Nothing was done with this at the meeting. What has happened since this meeting is that Thelma Harris, our new person, is going to, are you there? Come right here. She has a date set up, so let her tell you that. This is for the midwifery, going to talk to, it's a lobbyist for them?
Yes, this is Thelma Harris, Chief of Legislation, and the Midwifery Committee has asked us to meet with them to discuss legislation for next year, not this year, because it's too late to introduce anything. So we're just in the process of setting up a meeting end of this month to meet with them.
So there's no outcome.
And the purpose of the meeting is going to be?
The purpose of the meeting, as I think Jeanette was probably discussing, their issues that they would like to see in legislation, and they're looking for suggestions, strategies as to how to, and also possibly help them to find an author who might want to take the bill and the whole situation forward.
Thank you.
Very preliminary.
Pardon?
very preliminary information. They do have a wish list.
It seems like the nurse midwifery group is not coming through the board appropriately.
This is just the discussion.
Well, if they're looking for an author.
They're looking for an author for a bill. They're looking for somebody to help them lobby through a bill. They need to come.
They don't
and
have a
get-
bill yet.
Have a discussion with the board. That's what their discussion was. So they need to come before us.
But Janet, you're in that group, right? That's what she is in that group, Michael.
They're not at the board level yet.
We're not at the board level yet. We're at the talking level.
They're not at the board level yet. Clarification, respectfully, they're not at the board level yet. They're
Discussing.
they're discussing it. They want to know the process. They want to know what they need to do and so forth. So they will meet with Thelma to talk about the process, which is that.
This is a wish list of what they want.
She just said their suggestions to look for.
Michael, speak into the microphone.
She just said that they were looking for suggestions for an author.
They're just asking for information, like how do you identify an author? Should it be someone with a medical background? Do you know anyone who might be interested in midwifery? Those types of questions and information.
Anything else, Mike? Thank you. 4.0 was brought up. Apparently, the Medical Board of California has a midwife assistant role. It's passed through a bill and it's been, it has regulations. And for some reason, the Midwifery Committee thought that they could effect the role of midwife assistant role because they were concerned if they had somebody working in their practice, if a midwife that's nurse midwife has somebody working in their practice and they don't meet this midwifery assistant role that was created by the medical board, that might be a problem. But this is like a medical assistant. It's not higher than a medical assistant in the regulations for the medical board. It was just a point of discussion at the meeting.
So there's no licensing or certification or anything, licensing or certification for that particular role? I mean, it can just be anybody who comes in?
No.
I don't get it.
It is set up in code.
Okay.
The code section is 2516.5, that found within the Licensed Midwife Practice Act of 1993, Business and Professions Code, section 2505. It states that a midwife assistant is one who, among other things, possesses at least the minimum amount of hours of appropriate training pursuant to the standards established by the board, they mean the medical board, for medical assistants. So it's already in statute and regulation.
So it comes under medical a medical assistant?
It comes under the Medical Board of California.
Right.
The midwives are under the medical board,
Right.
and they produced a bill that recognizes midwife assistants and their role.
Okay.
And it's in BMP Code 1.6.5. So the nurse midwives were really unaware of this entity and wanted to know if they could affect this entity because it was already a bill and already done. You really can't go to the medical board and say, oh, I want to change some of the things that went through a bill.
So some of them didn't even know that there was such a person?
Correct. So that's what
Interesting.
brought it to the committee to talk about.
And they have really no authority over that person?
Not
because
over the
they're under
medical board.
medical board, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that that's part of the problem is they find things out and then they want to advise the rest of the nurse midwives that the midwives for medical board have a midwife assistant.
I see,
Could it be any more confusing than that?
right.
The other thing that was asked that I do, which was interesting when I found it out, is 6.0, information only. On November 29th, 2018, hospitals who are members of the California Maternal Quality Care Collaborative Maternal Data Center were notified of a new statistic called percent deliveries by a certified nurse midwives. They wanted to know about this. To be publicly reported on the calhospitalcompare.org. calhospital.compare.org will help women more easily identify their hospital choice that they have a certified nurse midwife present, and it will also ensure that what the consumer sees on the California Health, Cal Hospital Compare is an accurate reflection of the proportion of certified nurse midwives at their facilities. What it really does is there's a concerted effort that if a midwife is doing the delivery in a hospital, that her name or his name goes on the birth certificate. The birth certificate goes through the state, it's on my head. It's a state agency for vital statistics. So they were very interested, the nurse midwife committee was very interested that this data be captured so that nurse midwives got the points for doing the delivery. And so this particular organization is doing the counting.
So that organization keeps track of licensed midwives now, but not,
Not the licensed midwife. The licensed midwife is going to sign the medical record as that person who was there for the birth.
yeah.
So it comes out that in the medical records department, what they told us, in the medical records department, if the nurse's name isn't there, isn't put in the medical record, the technician might, or in the medical staff office may take the doctor's name and put it there. And they just wanted to make sure that most nurse midwives know to fill out the record. If they are only managing the labor and not actually doing the delivery, then they don't get to put their name on the delivery certificate.
Good.
Just another. And that's the end of the report.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you very much. And I think that's the end of our nursing practice.
All right, I want to thank everybody that's here today and have a safe trip home. Be safe, and hopefully we'll see you back next month at committee meetings. So this meeting is now adjourned.